Hospitals in Ontario have slammed the brakes on new drug orders. Canberra just told Washington no. And deep inside the West Wing, Donald Trump is drafting a 200% tariff on insulin. Welcome to the moment medicine becomes a weapon. The hot mics caught him first. We'll have an announcement on pharmaceuticals, very, very high tariffs, maybe 200%. 24 hours later, the words turned into policy. From the Roosevelt Room on July 8th, Trump laid down an ultimatum. Either shift critical drug manufacturing back onto US soil within 18 months, or pay a 200% import duty on everything from plasma to penicillin. National security, he argued, demands nothing less. But allies heard something very different. A countdown. Australia fired the opening rebuttal. The US buys more than $2 billion worth of Aussie meds each year, much of it produced by biotech giant CSL across facilities in Melbourne and Pennsylvania. Treasurer Jim Chalmers didn't flinch. "We will not rewrite the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme," he said, defending the system that forces price negotiations to keep prescriptions affordable. Translation: you control the market, we control our sovereignty. Canada took the silent route. No podiums, no press releases, just spreadsheets and triage plans. Health Canada quickly mapped out which drugs could survive a tariff-choked supply chain, knowing more than 80% of its raw ingredients circle back through the United States. A 200% surcharge might barely dent America's bottom line, but it could bankrupt the small batch generic makers that keep Ontario's hospitals stocked. So Ottawa is lobbying behind closed doors, armed with data, aiming for exemptions on humanitarian, not commercial grounds. While that drama brewed, fresh tariff letters flew to Japan and South Korea. Starting August 1st, every import from those two allies faces a flat 25% fee. Nissan tumbled 5%, the Dow lost nearly 1%, and Goldman Sachs warned that policy volatility has replaced every other geopolitical risk. The White House promises uniformity. Wall Street smells chaos. Why? Because Washington doesn't have the staff to haggle one-off pharma deals with 100 trading partners. Instead, countries will be sorted into 3 blunt tiers, each slapped with 10 to 70% duties. Alignment is out, obedience is in. That's forcing capitals to choose. Bend quickly or build firebreaks. Ottawa chose the firebreak. Mark Carney, ex-Bank of England, chief and Ottawa's behind-the-scenes strategist, quietly rolled out liquidity backstops for biotech and aluminum, trimmed a digital services tax to ease one pressure point, and then waited. No public concessions, no dramatic speeches, just preparation to outlast the storm. It worked temporarily. Markets mistook the tax tweak for surrender and rallied, only to discover the core clash remained. Pharma tariffs, supply chain choke points, and a July 21st deadline that ticks louder by the hour. Seoul is hunting for clarity no one will give. Its trade ministry wants to know if life-saving drugs will be carved out from the 25% wall. Washington hasn't answered. Meanwhile, Singapore's Temasek just poured $250 million into alternative supply chain biotechs, and India's Chipla is quietly rerouting exports towards South America, hedging against American turbulence. Every fracture among US allies strengthens Beijing by default. China hasn't been hit yet and can afford to sit back and watch partners squabble. Even the math looks grim. Over 90% of America's active pharmaceutical ingredients still come from China and India. US factories simply don't exist to replace that volume tomorrow. A tariff meant to push reshoring could instead pull the plug on essential generics. Remember, 9 out of 10 US prescriptions are generic. Remove even 5% of that pipeline, and you don't create price hikes. You create empty pharmacy shelves. Inside Washington, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says the Section 232 report making the tariffs official will drop before month end. Once that national security label sticks, reversing it becomes almost impossible without bruising political capital. So what happens on July 21st if Canada, Australia, Japan, and South Korea still refuse to sign? The administration must either hammer allies in an election year or blink and look weak. Both choices puncture the strength and speed brand Trump has built. Australia is already future-proofing. CSL will expand stateside, sure, but Melbourne labs aren't closing, and the PBS remains untouchable. They're betting resistance is cheaper than surrender. Canada is betting patience beats panic. South Korea is demanding answers, and Tokyo is calculating if compliance today just invites a bigger target tomorrow. The irony? Drugs don't behave like steel or semiconductors. They expire on shelves, not balance sheets. Supply chains for insulin or antibiotics can't pause for tariff negotiations. Yet those chains are exactly what Washington is gripping like a lever. Allies once called innovation partners are now economic hostages. Trust has been converted into a price tag. So picture the next shortage. It may not be triggered by a hurricane or factory fire. It might start with a new customs code and a 200% bill. And when American hospitals ask where the insulin went, the answer won't be stuck at sea. It will be stuck in policy. Global Pulse will keep tracking every twist as the deadline approaches. If you want the full story when the executive orders drop, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and stay tuned. Because the next time medicine makes headlines, it might be stamped Made in Tariffland.